Thank you so much, and I welcome you to today's community talk show, which is brought to you by Center for Constitutional Governance, Action Aid, and Civic Space TV. I'm your moderator for today. My name is Lakeje Dafansi. I'm an advocate, I'm a tax consultant, and a lecturer. Today's topic is on youth participation in land ownership in Uganda. That is our topic today. We have a panel of 4, and we have our dear audience that are attending, and later on we will be engaging with the audience who will have time to ask questions and as well give their own submission regards to our topic for today. So I'm going to introduce our panelists who are going to help us unpackage this topic for today. Our first panelist is Namale Vivian. Namale Vivian is an advocate of the High Court of Uganda and subordinate courts there too. She is the legal advisor, Uganda Youth Council, Uganda Kingdom. Vivian, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Vivian, and we are happy to have you for this show. Our second panelist is Katende Moses. Katende Moses is a communication expert of EP Youth League. Moses, you're welcome.
Thank you, and happy to meet up with you guys.
Thank you so much, Moses, and we are happy to have you on the show. Our third panelist is Atuhuriire Modern Karaka. She is a human rights activist, a politician student, and she is a student at LDC. You're welcome, Modern.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lucky. I'm glad to be here also.
My apologies, Modern is a he. My apologies,
Modern. Fine.
Okay, so our fourth panelist is Bampabwire Rosemary Orishaba, and Orishaba is a lawyer. Rosemary, you're welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I hope we can make a good contribution to this talk show.
Thank you so much. So those are our 4 panelists who are going to discuss this topic. Thus, and like I said earlier, our audience, we are going to have time for audience engagement. So you can keep your questions. When it reaches that time, we'll be able to engage our audience. In the meantime, you can use the chat to post your comments and as well as your questions to the panelists. So our topic today, as I stated earlier, is youth participation in land ownership in Uganda. So as we know, the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, that is Article 237(1), states that land in Uganda belongs to the citizens of Uganda and shall vest in them in accordance with the land tenure systems provided for in the Constitution. Now, our panelists are going to help us understand these different land tenure systems and are going to unpackage it for us. I would kindly ask all the panelists to mute. I'm getting feedback. You will unmute when speaking. Yes, thank you. So our panelists are going to help us understand these different land tenure systems. And issues of land has been issues of contention lately. We have had issues with youth ownership of land, women land rights, absentee landlords versus tenants, issues of minor land, issues of unregistered customary land, especially in northern Uganda, land grabbing, rampant land conflicts, and so forth. So these are some of the issues that our panelists are going to unpackage it for us, and we will have a discussion on it. Now, I would like to start straight away with our panel discussion, and I would like to start with Vivian, and I would like to pose my first question to Vivian. So Vivian, help us understand, what is your understanding of the Uganda land tenure systems?
So I was greetings to everyone, first of all, and I'm glad to take part in this. Thanks to the organizing team, thanks to God who has enabled us to have this. So I will start off with defining land tenure, or how we interpret it generally, and in a layman's language. Land tenure, I would define it as ways in which individuals can own land in Uganda, or rather the relationship that people have with land in the different areas of Uganda. So when I'm to consider the legal perspective, laws as regards to land tenure systems are provided for. We have our constitution, the 1995 constitution. We have the Land Act of 1998 as amended. We have the Registration of Titles Act as well. And it's also mentioned in the Succession Act. So if I'm to go straight to the Constitution, which is our supreme law of the land, it clearly defines for us the land tenure systems in Uganda. And it gives provision for 4 land tenure systems, which are customary land tenure system. There's the freehold land tenure system. There's the leasehold land tenure system. And we also have the Milo land system. So those are the 4 land tenure systems we have in Uganda. And we find that Ugandans are lucky to choose where to fall. Others are, there's also public land. Some mention it as a category, though it's not clarified in our constitution. So basically, those are the 4 land tenure systems that we have. Thank you very much. I don't know if I could go now into detail of defining each and every land tenure system, like giving more detail about each and every land tenure system. Should I get into the detail of it?
Yes, Vivian, you can help our audience and package the 4 land tenure systems that you just discussed.
Thank you very much. So I'll start with the Milo land tenure system. First of all, Milo land tenure system is perpetual in nature. By perpetuity, I mean that a person can own it like without limits, and you can even pass it on to the next generations. It can be inherited, it can be transferred without any conditions at all. So it's held in perpetuity. And Milo land tenure system is predominantly in the Buganda region. We have it mostly in Buganda and also some parts of Ampole, Toro, but it's predominantly in Buganda Kingdom, or rather the central part of Uganda. So when to look at Milo, Milo can be owned by an individual. It can be owned by companies, which are official persons in law, and they can own property. It can also be owned by organizations. But for the case of Milo, it can be owned by foreigners. Foreigners are an exception, and they can only own land as a leasehold for a specific period of time. So briefly, that's what I can say about Milo land tenure system. And for freehold as well, it is a perpetual nature. You can own it. It can be in existence like for a limited period of time. And it too has no conditions or time limits. So, and this land, the freehold, it can be a conversion from a leasehold. You can get it as a conversion from a leasehold or customary land. Then if I'm to speak about customary land, this is owned majorly by tribes or clans in the different areas of Uganda. So it's more like traditional land. It's in different parts of the country. We have it in Acholi, in northern Uganda. We have it in Tororo, different places really, but it's not so common in Buganda Kingdom, or rather in the central region. And this land, customary, has regulations and rules that guide it. And these rules are in accordance with the customs of a particular region. Say, the Acholi people know how to, they have rules, a specific set of rules that governs the land structure, that land structure. And for you to get customary land, you have to engage culture leaders or tribal leaders or clan leaders. So that is the structure of the customary land. Then for leasehold, as you can hear it, it's a lease. It's for a specified period of time. You can't own it in perpetuity. Let me say, we have the lessor and the lessee. Lessor is the person who grants you a lease, and then the lessee is the person who benefits from this lease or 49 years, it could be for 99 years. So it's dependent on the terms that you agree on as the lessor and the lessee. And this is the tenure that can also be owned by foreigners who come to our country. You're given a lease, and we have boards that are responsible for this. We have district land boards. We have the Uganda Land Commission. So those bodies can grant you a lease for a specific period of time, and you can utilize it whichever way. Is that the Milo land system for landlord. So there's that landlord-tenant relationship of rights for the registered proprietors of that land. I think I'll get into more detail later on as we continue the discussion. Thank you very much, moderator.
Yes. Thank you so much, Vivian, for that deep insight into the land tenure systems, the 4 land tenure systems in Uganda, and as well as the legal framework that governs the 4 land tenure systems. Now, I would like to bring Rosemary into the discussion. So, Rosemary, my question to you is, having listened to the legal framework that governs land ownership, does this current legal framework governing land ownership in Uganda benefit the youth?
Thank you, Laka, for that. I would say that it does not necessarily not benefit them, and it does not necessarily benefit them either. I say that to mean this. You see, as youth, the challenges that most of the youth have is, one, it's so many of them might not really understand what the tenure systems of land actually are. And putting that aside, some of them don't even understand the value of land. Yes. So for one to say that they can actually hold land and actually utilize it properly is something a youth might not actually understand. So this challenge, this gap in the knowledge of land and its benefits to a youth might not necessarily benefit them. The framework also as well, it might be hard for a youth, someone say of 20, 25, to even own land in any of the tenure systems. Yeah, because let me give an example of like customary land tenure system. Yeah. A gentleman or a lady, a gentleman might not be able to own the land maybe until his father passes or decides to, let me say, chop off a piece of land for them. Yeah, they have to wait for a long period of time before that can happen. And then in our culture, in most of the cultures anyway, from way back, yeah, women were not allowed to actually own land. So it would be hard to find a 25-year-old woman who owns land customarily. I'm not saying that they're not there, but finding one would kind of be a tricky thing. Do you understand? Okay, using that customary land tenure system. Yeah. So to say that this would actually benefit them, it's a give or take sort of situation. Yeah. And when it comes to now, like, let's say like leasehold or any of the other tenure systems that Vivian has talked about, yeah, you would say that maybe like a youth might not even have the financial capacity to purchase land and utilize it as he or she would like to, you see, yeah? So the tenure systems might not necessarily benefit all the youth on like a plain level. Yeah, it's there's that one who might be able to have it if they have money and they can purchase the land of 5 million and going up. And then there's that gentleman who has to wait for his father to pass before he can actually own land. So, or there's that one who would be lucky if his father can cut off a chunk of his piece of land and give it to him while he's still living. So it cannot, there's no one clear block answer, and It's not a one shoe size that fits all the youth of Uganda. I hope I have made sense to you.
Thank you so much, Rosemary.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that clear insight. You were very clear. So let me bring Moses into the discussion as well. So Moses, my question to you is, what is the status, the current status of land ownership by the youth in Uganda today?
Now, Madam Moderator, you may excuse me. I may not have to use video for
It's
me
okay.
to, because of the kind of environment. I'm driving. I'm on the way driving. But I am very, very, very sure that I can put up my points clear with the audio.
That's fine, Moses.
Now, one, I want to bend so much on the compulsory land acquisition, which is stated under Article 26 of the Constitution of Uganda. And this one basically provides for purchase of land through voluntary willing buyer and willing seller at the market value. Several has changed, but obviously there are many policies on land acquisition. And for me, I find these policies very unfair and unjust for the young people. Why? When you look at the current legal framework for land ownership administration, it is anchored in the 1995 Constitution, Article 19, and it declares that land belongs to the citizens of Uganda, not to the state, where my colleague defined the systems. Now, the complications for me are particularly in the Miro system, especially when land is commoditized. And this is an origin that comes from the Buganda case. The Miro system defines all rights and obligations of the owner of the land that is occupied in good faith. Some time back, the minister said that as someone who deals with land matters every day, she finds that the number one challenge of such a system, in quotes, Miro land, there is multiplicity of interests on the land, where you find that the constitution says land is owned by government, but also Mengo owns land. Now, for you, who is a squatter, will also come to claim for land. And for me, I think most of the young people are getting land as squatters. Now, there is that kind of multiplicity, which is very, very, very unfair in the Miro system. Secondly, with the provisions in Chapter 15 of the Constitution that lays down clearly the functions of the Uganda Land Commission and the district land boards, who are the managers of the public good, which is land. There is also a Land Act, which was enacted in 1998 to implement the Constitution, to implement the framework, which formally recognizes customary land tenure and provides citizens an option to acquire certificates, customary ownership. I think it is under Article 23, provides for the conversion of customary or leasehold land tenure to freehold. And another one, I think in Article 24, that recognizes for the security of tenants and bona fide occupants of land. And we are very sure most of us young people are tenants, or you can find those who are bona fide occupants. Now, the problem is one, implementation has been very, very ineffective. That is really very unfair. Three, there has also been two major amendments to the Land Act. The first, which was in 2004, that sought to improve protection of women and family rights. Another one was in 2010 that sought to address a public outcry on land grabbing and forceful evictions, and by clarifying the relations between lawful and bona fide unregistered occupants and landowners. Also, in 2013, the National Land Policy set out to address weaknesses in institutions charged with handling land management disputes. It provides for decentralization of the institutional framework for land administration and management to improve efficiency and accessibility of services. It also provides for strengthening land rights for women by enabling married parties to own land jointly. Now, in the perspective of the young people, women who are young people, but also three, it sets up administrative land tribunals to handle land conflicts and evictions. This one also empowers customary authorities to handle some land disputes within the communities. Now, despite all these moves to make land policies more inclusive and to persist inequalities and injustice, obviously there are more radical attempts that have failed. For example, there was a proposal for joint ownership of property for married couples to be automatic, and attempts to change the succession laws so as not to favor inheritance down to the male line. And that is, I think, in Article 26. Now, there has been pressure from the opposition. Yet the current government has pushed to amend the laws. But that pressure where government is saying this, now opposition is saying this, it has really become very, very a big problem in compensation. So I think youth should engage so much in understanding these policies such that they can formulate alternative policies and such that they can advocate for them accordingly. I beg to submit.
Thank you so much, Moses, and thank you for that good insight. I would like to move to modern. So modern, we have listened to so many laws that govern land. We have heard about the Constitution, the Land Acquisition Act, and all the amendments that were mentioned earlier by Moses. But my question to you is, does the youth understand these different land laws that we have in this country? Do the youth really understand them?
Thank you very much, our today's moderator. Beg to submit that actually most of the youth, they don't understand the current laws we have in Uganda concerning the land. As Vivian put it clear, that most youth come to inherit this land that we have in Uganda after when their parents have passed away. They even don't know the bodies of how that land can be inherited. Even when their parents die, most of the youth will find they are still suffering with their elders who are left to take care of them. They are taking away their land because they don't know the laws governing land in our country. That's why we have had a lot of evictions, especially with the customary tenure and the marital land, because most people are inheriting that land. They don't know the laws that are in place to protect them, and the youth have ended up losing their land. They have ended up failing to utilize the land, even when they have inherited it from their parents. You see, youth, we as youth, most of us, we have failed to get money to buy land, and when we get the land, we have failed to utilize it because we don't know the governing laws. For example, we have the national policy that was put in the National Land Policy of 2013, which was to orient the land sector and the national development. But we as the youth, we did not benefit from it because during its legislation or its combination, the youth were not involved in it, and with that we have failed to know the importance of such policy. So even it has not brought the youth on board to benefit from the land in socio-economic development. And so many so many laws that have been put in place have not benefited the youth because most of us, we don't know these laws. For example, we see the amendment, the Land Amendment Act of 2010, which got the choice of occupancy, wanted to protect the bona fide occupants on such land. But you find still people are being evicted on the land. Why? We have had so many unregistered. We have had so many unregistered land in Uganda. So we have failed to register that land, even when we get the land. And as the youth, even when you want to register that land, the bills and the cost in registering that land are still really expensive. The sub-county committees and the parish committees have not been put to use to even benefit those youth who are in the village, even benefit the poor. Let me call them the poor youth. If you find 70% of us are unemployed or 70% of the youth are unemployed, and if you get a chance to get a land, you cannot have that money to register your land, and you find you have that ownership. You are safe with your land. You'll get land which is unregistered, and every day you end up going to court every day trying to fight with people because you find that land is registered with like 5 to 3 people. The mafias want to take that land. You cannot benefit. And I would like to submit that it is true. Most of us, we don't know the legal framework we have in place to protect our land, to protect the land of the Ugandan. Yes, I beg to submit, Madam Moderator.
Thank you so much, Modern. Let me get back to Vivian. So Vivian, there has been a contentious issue on the issues of tenants and landlords on Milo land. Would like to have your take on that, on the issues of the conflict between the landlords and tenants when it comes to Milo land.
Yes, we've had Milo issues, I think, for the whole of this year. We've had debates and contentions about that land tenure system. But first and foremost, I would love to say that the Milo land tenure system is a duly recognized system in our supreme law of the land, that is the constitution. So it's legal and lawful to own Milo land. And about these issues to do with the conflicts between the tenants and the landlords, we've had these issues not only here in Uganda, but we've had land issues elsewhere, be it northern Uganda, be it the east. There have been land challenges. So I don't think the Milo land tenure system is a problem, but rather I would look at the implementation of the laws that govern this land, because I would say that the legal framework suffices, like it is, it's complete, I would say, in itself. But the problem that we have currently is implementation. And you realize that we have also the challenge of case backlog in courts about land issues. So we've had all those problems, but the major problem isn't the Milo land tenure system, but rather there's some loopholes in the implementation of the laws that govern the Milo land tenure system. About the conflicts between tenants and landlords, I would love to submit that most tenants, I think, have a very serious problem to do with appreciating the laws that govern land, because you see there's so much ignorance out there. They think they're entitled most times. These are the guys that come with bangers and axes. Like when you come and confront them about land, and maybe you want to buy them off, yeah, they think they're entitled and they think we have superior rights compared to the registered proprietors, which is not the case. So I think it's an issue to do with negotiations between the two parties, tenants and landlords. And we've had some successful land transactions where tenants peacefully agree and to an arrangement between themselves and their landlords to maybe like take a certain percentage or a certain bit of that land, and they get titles to that entitlement, and then they leave the registered proprietor to go ahead and sell off his interest to another party. I would use the Uganda term, okwegula, the banja holders. They have that, and they have the first priority. Like when you look at land rights, the right to purchase is supposed to be given to the tenant. He or she has that right to be considered as a first priority before the registered proprietor thinks of the other parties interested in the land. So to sum it up, I think the Milo land tenure system is not the problem, but rather it's the implementation of the laws that govern the system. This makes submission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Vivian, for that. It was very important to get your take on that contentious issue. Now, let's move to Rosemary. So, Rosemary, what are some of the challenges that the youth face when it comes to land acquisition?
Thank you for that. The biggest challenge that the youth face before we get to anything else is still that knowledge gap. Yeah, they wouldn't know. First of all, they don't even know the land tenure systems that are in place in Uganda. Yes. And without knowing that, it can be kind of hard for them to actually be able to acquire land in any of the forms of tenure that are available in Uganda. Putting that aside, also would say that they do not have the financial capacity. I'm not saying all, but I'm saying a big percentage of the youth do not have the financial capacity to acquire land. I mean, with this, the population in Uganda is 78% are the youth. These are people who are between the ages of 18 and 35. How many of them can you say actually earn a salary or make money from whatever avenue from which they can get money to be able to purchase land? There are not very many. So many of them are on the street struggling. They are looking for jobs. Someone has finished campus and is 25 and he's been on the street for like 3 years, walking those streets to find a job and no money, like nothing. So it's the knowledge gap and the finances that a youth has no access to, or if not having access, they have no knowledge. So these are the things that they face. And also, society has it in their minds that because you are 25, you don't have enough knowledge. You wouldn't understand the benefits of holding land. And I think that is a very shallow and myopic way of thinking, because just because I am 25 does not mean I am not smart. Yes, granted, there is those who might not have that knowledge of the benefits that they could have when they acquire land, yeah, or what they can utilize the land with, yes. But there is that 25-year-old who knows that if I want to get land, I could carry out farming, rear my goats and have my chickens and plant my carrots. Or there's that one who would think maybe I would construct like little apartments for people to stay in, and I collect rent every other month of about 200K from each tenant. Yeah. But you see, society puts boxes the youth in a small corner and they keep telling them, oh, you will not understand this until you get to this age. I do not think that is a good way to think, because I don't think age necessarily imparts information or knowledge on me. Yeah. It is a helping hand, but it's not the yardstick of knowledge. Yes, it's not the yardstick of all experiences, because I could be 25 and I have been taking care of my younger siblings throughout my life. So the knowledge I have is a lot. I could know how to till land. I could know how to trade. I could know how to start up a business and run it because of the life experience I have had. Yes. So these are just some of the very few major things that the youth face when it comes to acquisition. And just like I think Modern spoke about, he talked about not knowing how to follow up, like the steps in, let me say it's in purchase of land. Like, what does a youth need to know when they're purchasing land? Do they know that they need to go and visit the site to know where the land exactly is located, to know the neighbors, to know the LCs, to know that the person who is the vendor is actually the owner of this land? Do they know that they need to go to the land registry and clarify whether the purported vendor is actually the owner? Does he have a land title to this property that he's willing to sell to me? Is this land in an area that is designated as a land that should be protected? Yeah, like, have they gone to NEMA to know this? Do they know what plan they are supposed to have for the land? Because whatever plan you have for the land, the Physical Planning Act is supposed to come in place to know that whether you want to set up, whatever you want to set up, that the land is good for this project that you want to come up with, you see? So there's so much that the youth has to know. Do they know that when you buy the land, you have to have a sale agreement and witnesses? Do they know that you have to go all the way and then get the title, and then the name of the previous vendor has to be, his entry has to be cancelled before you as a youth, your name is your entry is put in on the certificate of title of that particular land, you see? So it's so many things, and you cannot sum all of them up. But the biggest challenge that the youth have as regards to land acquisition is lack of knowledge. That knowledge gap, as long as that can be filled, there's so much that can be dealt with, that can be handled for the youth, and which would simplify their ability to acquire land, not just in form of purchase where you exchange money and all, but they also understand how to handle their customary land, how to be able to, if they would like to get that customary land and bring it under the RTA. So there's so many other things that can be done, but that knowledge gap is the most important gap that must be filled above all, because outside of that, there's no policy that any maybe lawmakers will come up with that is going to help the youth if they don't have the knowledge. There is nothing now like the National Youth Council can do, because these are some of the challenges that the council was set up for, to help the youth in Uganda. It won't matter how much work you do if the knowledge is not provided. Aside of that, I mean, knowledge is power. I mean, that goes without saying. So if the youth is given this knowledge and they are sensitized, because I've seen in the church people talking about the sensitization, the youth have to also be interested in wanting to know these things, because if they don't know and they are all about, living the high life and not knowing how to handle what is in front of them, then it's not going to help. So the youth need to also find a time in their busy lives, quote unquote, to sit and actually understand the knowledge that encompasses land ownership. Because like you've said earlier, there are those wrangles that are all over the country. I mean, only recently we are seeing the people in northern Uganda where women were hacked to death, others were raped, and this is just because of land. Yeah. But if these persons had the knowledge and the ability to sit and then discuss on how they can handle these land challenges, then we wouldn't be having challenges of women being raped just because of land, people's houses being set ablaze just because of land. I mean, you understand, the knowledge gap is so wide, it is painful. And if we can bridge this gap, there's so much that we can be able to achieve as the youth in Uganda and as a country in general, because the youth occupy the biggest percentage of the population of Uganda, and Uganda being a young country, it's the development requirements are quite high. Yeah, so that knowledge gap is what we need to fill, and then we can handle everything else that comes after that. Thank you, Lakar.
Okay, thank you so much, Rosemary, for that. Let's move to Moses. So Moses, we have listened to all the challenges that have been brought out by Rosemary and also the previous panelists in regards to youth acquiring land. So my question to you is, how best can youth leaders engage policymakers in regards to land acquisition by the youth? Yes, Moses, are you still with us? Okay. Okay, as we wait for Moses to okay, as we wait for Moses, let me move to
I'm here.
Oh, okay. So Moses, let me just repeat my question to you. My question to you is that how best can youth leaders engage policymakers in regards to land acquisition by the youth?
Now, I think there are various steps to take. One, young people, especially the leaders, must engage in the process of reviewing and reforming, in the process of reviewing and reforming unfair land laws and policies. As I stated, there are existing land laws and policies that must be brought into line with the Constitution and with regional and international standards. So these leaders must engage in reviewing, in the process of reviewing and reforming these unfair laws. Two, I think there is a problem with land valuation processes. Now, these young people should engage government and they should advocate for building capacity of institutions that are involved in the valuation process of land to ensure fair and timely compensation. I think the most important thing also, youth leaders must engage so much in asking government to implement policies which are formulated but never implemented. I beg to move. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moses. Let me give Modern a chance to answer a question that was directed from the chat. There's a question that, is there a way we can increase the accessibility of land ownership by the youth?
Yes, thank you very much, our moderator. Yes, you can accessibility of youth participation in land. It is true, if, as Moses said, if these existing laws are reviewed, then the accessibility of youth to land can be there. I'll take the example. We have the land policy in place. So many land policies. We have the land policy of 2013, 15, 16, 2020. Even that land policy that wanted to make Uganda a middle state income by 2020. There is that policy, but did it involve the youth? Did it involve the youth? No, it did not bring the youth on board. Or if it brought the youth on board, did they put did the government allow the youth to participate in these orientation processes or management, coordination processes of land, so that maybe youth can participate in this land management and we have the development in place? No, it did not happen. So let the government or let the policymakers bring youth on board so that maybe they participate in the formulation, they participate in supervising, they participate in development, but the youth have been left out in all those processes. We have not been consulted even in reviewing. They are not allowing us to take part in reviewing these laws. When you decide, I'm sorry about. Hello.
Okay, Modern, we will get back to you on that at a later time. Then let me move to Vivian.
I wanted to make a joinder
Okay, Moses.
On Comrade Kule's point. Now, discussing the legal framework is another side. Now, the discussion of land ownership in Uganda. You see, when you look at our brothers in villages, I think accessibility to land is quite very, very easy. They can easily access land to do farming. They can also access land to construct. It becomes very, very easy because of the prices of land in those areas, but also because the family has plenty, so they can easily give out. Now, I think where it is very unfair is to those young people who stay in the urban areas. So for me, I think for one to own land in Kampala or suburbs of Kampala or the metropolitan, there is need to understand how systems of land work. Most young people today work in teams. If, for example, there is an acre of land which is priced at 100 million, what young people usually do, they combine the efforts in terms of money and buy that 1 acre and then partition with 25 decimals each. Then someone can be very sure that owns land and can also construct a house when they are still young. The other aspect of thinking that land is for only the old people, young people can't own land, is also not good. I think actually young people can own land by trying to invest when they are still very young. You see, you can't buy land when you're poor. You can only buy land when you have money. So young people should engage so much in entrepreneurial activities and investment to secure the processes of acquiring land when they are still very young. I beg to submit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moses, for that. So our audience, if you have any input, any questions, you can just put up your hand and we'll be able to pick you and you'll be able to direct your questions to our panelists and as well as give your submission. But let me move to Vivian. So Vivian, I would like us to talk about land acquisition, compulsory land acquisition by government. We have seen this is in the law, but however, we have seen violent evictions happen during this compulsory land acquisition. We have also seen government meet a lot of protests from the community. We have seen people undressing over compulsory land acquisition. So my question to you is, how best can government compulsorily acquire land from the citizens under compulsory land acquisition? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. About compulsory land acquisition, still, I would love us to go back to our constitution that governs us, the supreme law of the land. Every Ugandan, be it youth, female, male, has a right to own property. And these rights, as elaborated in Chapter 4 of the Constitution, can't be violated anyhow. So everyone has a right to own property. So even government has to appreciate that. And even when it's doing the compulsory acquisition process, it has to put that into consideration, that you can't just play with people's land because they have rights to it and they own it. And still, considering our constitution, it provides for equality of all before and under the law. and all government policies have to be non-discriminatory. So government can't just wake up and compulsorily take on someone's land without compensating them. So I think government should pay close attention to the compensation policies, because the law as it is, you have to compensate these people before taking on their land or utilizing it as the state. So compensation has to be considered before they can take on that land. And then also, I think most people are ignorant about the law and about their rights. So we continue to have these challenges. I think as legal persons and government legal entities, we owe the public, like, we need to sensitize people about their land rights, so they appreciate the law that governs their lands and their land, so that they're not manipulated or fraudulently or unfairly, or fraudulently, like, so their land is not fraudulently taken away from them. So basically, the government has to compensate, because that's the law that we have at hand. We've had conflicts about changes. There's been suggested amendments to that law, where government has tried to come up and advocate for, or rather, for changes in the law, so that compensation comes comes with time, as they've started their processes of utilizing this land, which I think is wrong, because I don't think practically that's going to yield any positive results for the landowners. So compensation should really be emphasized. People have to be compensated before their land is compulsory taken on by government. That's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. I'm moving to Rosemary. So, Rosemary, do you think when it comes to land, it's time to amend our laws? If you think it's time to amend our laws, what are some of the amendments that need to be introduced into the laws of Uganda in regards to land?
Thank you for that. When you look at amendments, you don't just wake up and amend the law just because you can. You see, what do you want to amend? What is the purpose of amending the law in regards to land? Yeah. Are we amending to protect? Are we amending to provide information? Are we amending to simplify the understanding of the already existing law? Yeah. What would be the purpose of amending the law? But I would say amending the law in regards to land, I think, would be a good thing if it is supposed to simplify, one, the understanding of the land that is available in Uganda, the systems, I mean, it is to simplify maybe the acquisition of land, either whether it is in regards to succession or in regards to purchasing the land, or when land is simply gifted to a person. Yeah, it would be good if it is we amend to bridge that gap of knowledge. Then yes, we should amend the law in that line. But to amend it without filling that knowledge gap would not be of help to anyone if they're not even going to if they don't already understand the law that is in existence. Then the amendment is not going to benefit them in any way whatsoever. Can you repeat the other question that you asked in regards to amendments?
No, I think it's answered. My question was, do you think it's time to amend our laws? And if it's time, what amendments do you think we should bring to our laws in regards to
answered that. The amendment should be about simplifying what is already in existence for those who lack the knowledge, who have failed. Because you see, law in itself, when you read a statement, it's not, you don't read it on the face of it alone. It has to be read in consonant with the other laws that are in existence. It's like saying you can't read the Land Act without the Land Act, which basically talks about land without looking at chapter 15, especially now like Article 237 about land ownership. Yes, you cannot read the law in separation, because there will be some things that have to do with land that are in the Succession Act as well. So if this gap can be breached and the knowledge dispensed on what is already existing and what is to come into play, then yes, the amendment would be good to bridge the gap of the lack of the knowledge that not only the youth have, but those even outside the youth gap probably also don't understand the laws that are in place. They probably don't even know that there is the law about the challenge they are probably facing or they are bound to face because of one thing or the other. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Rosemary. Moving to Moses. So Moses, we have listened to so many land conflicts, even right coming out from the panel and even from the community, we have seen there are numerous land conflicts in this country. How best can we address these land conflicts?
Now, I'll start with an example. I have a colleague of mine who bought land, has an agreement, but does not have a title. The same landlord went ahead and sold the same land to another person, and he did not give that person a title. And went ahead also to sell it to another person. So it is a multiple transaction, which is unfair. Now, where the law has been very unfair is in the time frame of handling court cases. If really the governing bodies, especially justice, can give enough time to solve these cases, because you've been in court for a very, very, very big period of time, and at the end of the day, you do not have a fair hearing because of the corruption and the bribery that happens within the systems. Now, I think the most important thing to do is to establish effective land inquiry systems, and also ensuring that these inquiry systems, for example, the tribunals, do not have loopholes like those in the justice system, because you can easily bribe officers of the law. It is very easy. Secondly, I think the civil society should also help Ugandans with creating systems that can help the public access free legal services. We have young people who have land conflicts, but they cannot afford legal fees. They can't even afford the processes. So if civil society can come in and also provide such services, it will help in reducing land conflicts. But also too, as I said, there are policies which are in place and they are not implemented. Now, the moment they are not implemented, it makes the whole process become very, very, very disadvantaging to the common people, especially the young people. And I think with that, we can really reduce on some of the conflicts we have on land matters.
Thank you so much, Moses. Would like to move to the issue of.
Meanwhile,
Okay.
I have a question from Mr. Amanya Oscar from the Q&A,
Okay.
and I wish to answer it live.
Please do.
the question of, is it true that the biggest problem to youth owning land is a financial is a financial one? So how do we get the youth gain financial ability enough for them to own land? And then, is there a way of regulating land prices so that youth can have the ability to buy land? Now, obviously, to gain financial ability and freedom, there is only one technique, and that is accumulating capital. You can never have money enough, but by accumulating capital, it can help you to access most of the big assets on the market, especially land. You cannot buy land without money. So accumulating capital, Mr. Manya, you have to accumulate capital such that you can get land on the market. Now, is there a way of regulating land prices? I think this is impossible because it is an issue of willing buyer and willing seller. I can wake up in the morning and say my land is my land, whether it's small or big, whether you bring a surveyor or a valuer, it doesn't matter. I am selling my land at this price. So I don't think there is a way of regulating land prices. It is a willing buyer, willing seller. So I hope, Mr. Manya, I have answered you. Thank you.
Thank you. This would like to move to the issue of women acquiring land and owning land. This has been an issue that has existed for long, the issue of gender gap when it comes to land. So let me start with Modern on that issue. So Modern, how do we bridge the gap, the gender gap when it comes to land ownership?
Yes, thank you very much, our moderator. On the gender imbalances we have in land, the only way to do that is to amend the law. We need to amend the Succession Act. When we have the Succession Act amended to even give a chance to women to have land, to inherit property, to have that equal to have that equal share of land with men, that is going to be okay. It is the only way to bridge that gap. However much we have had so many cases challenging the provisions of the Succession Act, but the Parliament has not come in place to put them in place, or even to implement them. We have so many women suffering in villages there with their land after when their husbands have died. We still have those shambolic customs in place that have made women fail to access land, fail to acquire land. There is still that imbalance between them. But the only way we need to do that, the government needs to come and put in place the system of implementing each and every policy, the implementing the law. That is the only way we shall bridge this gap between the gender imbalances. And I also want to put my voice on the amendment of the law. If women will not access this land, if we still have this long process of legalizing of registering the land, these processes are very many, and the government have failed to use the parish land committees, the sub-county land committees. But someone is wants to apply for a certificate, but would want to start from the land register and starting from the parish. We have had all these conflicts because of the implementation. But if we bridge that gap between the implementation of the policies we have and even those the symbolic laws, customs that we have in place, we shall have the women get involved or access land like other gender. Moderator, before I leave, I take my leave. I also want to put my voice on the compulsory acquisition. I also want to to echo something there. It is true we want the government to put some projects in place, and most of us are going to benefit from those projects, but they need to streamline the processes of compensating people. They shouldn't take take people's land without compensating them. And still, in compensating them, they also need to involve people in land valuation. I have had advantage to attend to certain people or certain projects, a government project in Western Uganda here. What the government valuer did, brought the assessment papers to people. I gave the assessment papers to them and told them, you only put your name, signature, and account number. Would not, the valuer did not explain the essence of that assessment to people. Then at the end, they went there and filled in the money. You would find someone with 3 hectares of land, and there is a banana plantation, their house there is being valued at a fee where you can't even buy a plot of land in the village. You see, those are the tricks now the mafias in the government are using to take people's land. So those things need to change. Even women are suffering. As Rosemary said, we need to bring that knowledge, the knowledge gap to the people. That is the only way even how we shall have the gender imbalance on land. That is how even women shall get their land, or they are going to be compensated. They are going to be get the actual compensation of their land. But if not that, then we still have problems in the country. Thank you very much. I beg to submit.
Okay, thank you so much. Before
can I interject a bit from what he has said?
Okay, Rosemary.
Yes. You asked him about women acquiring land and how we can bridge that gap. And he mentioned how they should amend the Succession Act. I agree with that. But everyone is throwing around amendment. Before you amend the law, it's important first to deal with custom. We know that customs these are the rules and regulations and the ways a community has run itself since time immemorial for it to be a custom. And customarily, there's a belief that women shouldn't own land. It is only the male gender that can own land. So before we go to amending the Succession Act or any other act there too, there first needs to be that sensitization that a woman owning land is also a thing that can happen. It's a normal thing for a woman to own land, that land ownership isn't a male-dominated environment. Then when you are able to handle that bit, then the amendments can fall in line because like he said earlier, there are women in the villages who are suffering, especially after their husbands have passed. You see, the problem won't necessarily be the law. The problem is now the custom that community has. That community knows only male persons are supposed to own land. So if this woman's husband passes, then automatically in the custom, the land is going to fall to their son, who probably is like 2 years old and he doesn't know even what land is, you see. So before we can amend the law, let's educate people on the possibility of a woman owning land. I have emphasized the need of knowledge because without this knowledge, then amending the law is not going to help this woman because she doesn't probably even know that the Succession Act, that woman deep in the village doesn't even know that the Succession Act exists. But she knows the customs that are run in this community in which she lives. So if that can be handled, then we are good to go. Then there's a gentleman called Ayevare Prosperous who had asked questions. If you don't mind me answering him now, I hope he is listening. His question was about what he says, what do I consider when buying land? first and foremost, Ayebade, what do you want the land for? That is your first consideration. Are you buying land because you want to construct a house? Are you buying land because you want to carry out farming of potatoes and cabbage? Are you buying the land to rear goats and chickens? Yeah. What you want to buy the land for, that should be your first consideration. Then everything else can fall in place. His second question is, how do I register my land to get a land title and be safe from grabbers putting in point the offices to go to? Also, not forgetting that I am a village boy coming from deep of Kamwenge district. So, Ayebare, when you want to own land, there are a few steps that are important for you to follow. First, like I said, what you want to use the land for, yeah, will determine where you buy the land, because you're not going to buy land in Kololo and then you're going to take their goats and chicken. That would be strange, yeah? So what you want to use the land for is very, very important. Then there are a few steps that you would follow when you want to purchase land. You can do a physical search. Yeah, so say there is a vendor X whom you want to buy land from. You carry out a physical search by actually going to where the land is located. Yeah. And by going to the land where it's located, you are verifying that the land actually does exist. It is in the place that the vendor says that it is. Yes. You also have the opportunity to speak with the neighbors or the local council in the area to know whether this vendor is actually the owner of the land, because you have heard of challenges where someone poses as a vendor of land and he actually has no ownership whatsoever of the land. Yes, you can always go and carry out a search at the land registry to verify that the person who claims to be the vendor is the person who actually owns the land, because the land registry has the title, all the titles of land that is under the Registration of Titles Act. So all this information, they will have it. All you have to do is submit the land that you give the information of the land that you want them to check for, and then you pay a prescribed fee for that, about 10,000 shillings, I think. And they can do this search for you to verify that the vendor is actually the owner of the land. You can, like I said earlier, you can check with NEMA to find out whether this land is or isn't under lands that must be protected.
Okay, Rosemary, as you summarize.
Yes, I'm summarizing. And then he can also verify, he can always carry a surveyor, of course, whom you'll have to pay some money, who can know the demarcations of the land, and also find out if the person who is selling to you the land is married. Because if this is family land that he wants to sell to you, there must be spousal consent. If he is a married person, he needs to give you, his spouse needs to give spousal consent for this land to be sold to you. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. Before I engage the audience, let me give Vivian 2 minutes to give her comments about the gender gap when it comes to land ownership.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I would like to first thank Rosemary. She's been quite elaborative about the gender gap issue. Just to add on to her submission, I wish to elaborate more on succession planning. I think as women, youth inclusive, female youth inclusive, we haven't appreciated our succession law, or rather, yes, succession planning in general. Women haven't appreciated the fact that they can actually die before their spouses. Everybody always thinks about it the other way around, that the man is going to die, what is he going to leave me with, things like that. But even a woman can go first. So to secure your interest in a property, it's always advisable for you to leave a will, always have a will, and if you own property, have a will, and always ensure to update it, or rather to add something to it, yearly or periodically, because that way your rights to property will be protected. Because as a man can own property, also women do have the right to own property, because the Constitution provides for this equality and then provides for laws that are non-discriminatory, so they apply to both male and female. So just like a man can leave a will, we too as women can leave rules behind, clearly elaborating on how we would love or how we wish our land to be dealt with in case of our demands. And still, even if you're buying property with your husband or rather with your partner, it's always very important for you to ensure that your name actually appears in the certificate of title, or rather the duplicate certificate of title, because if your name doesn't appear, then you're going to have issues or contentious challenges later on in life. So we have what we call joint tenancy and tenancy in common. Actually, your name can appear on the title, whether you're a wife or a partner or a girlfriend, so that your rights are also secured in property. Because most women, we've seen women dealing with land like with laxity. You'll find a woman and she'll tell you that I'm okay with it since my husband is in the title, that's sufficient. Or since my boyfriend is in the title, that's okay. And yet they've even financially contributed to that land. So always make sure that you appear on that property so to secure your interest. Or if it's such a Wanja, make sure that you appear in the land sale agreement so that your interest is protected. And most importantly, endeavor to engage legal counsel. It's always important to consult, and you need that legal backing because it can save you a lot in the long run. Yes, lawyers might be costly a bit, but in the long run, realize that those expenses actually pay off. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vivian, and all our panelists. I can see the messages in the chat, the Q&A, and our attendees have really, really appreciated, and they say they have been able to learn a lot from today's discussion. So I would like to really appreciate the panelists. Now we are going into audience engagement. I can see hands up. So I'll be picking some audience to give us their take on the topic plus their questions to the panelists. I would like to start with Pamela. I think Pamela's hand has been up for long. So Pamela, you have the floor to ask your question or to give your submission. Okay, as we wait for Pamela, let me move to Joyce Adikini. So Joyce, you have the floor to give your submission or question.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, Joyce, I can hear you clearly.
Yes, thank you very much. Apologies, I joined the meeting a little late because I had some network challenges. So I hope part of what I'm going to talk about has not been resolved already. My first submission was in the different land tenure systems that we have, that when we're discussing the access to land and the challenges that young people face, we also have to factor that in, because, for instance, there are certain communities, mostly in the northern region, that have that use the land tenure system of customary, and the land is owned by the community. So, and the clan, for example. So if a young person wants to utilize the land, they get it through the clan leaders. And whoever wants to use land just has to go to the clan leaders and they apportion to them what they're supposed to use. That kind of person does not have the same challenge that me from the east, where most of the land is on freehold, faces when I want to use land. So I think there are different things that we shall have to factor in when we want to push for amendments and so on, because all these land tenure systems present different opportunities and challenges to the use of land for young people. I tried to make some consultations yesterday after seeing this topic in the area where I'm staying, and it did not appear that the young people who want to use land here have that level of difficulty, since no individual is allowed to own land. All land is owned by the clan. You're only allowed to use it when you belong to that clan, or with the permission if you want to hire. So the other thing that I think is we are a country of young people, and we are supposed to be very productive in order for the economy to thrive. And often there are programs that are encouraging us to engage into projects like agriculture, mostly for young people, because the job market is so slim and cannot accommodate all of us. But when you want to engage into agriculture, you must have some piece of land where you're going to do that. And it becomes more complex when, in addition to capital for getting inputs and so on, you need land. So I think there could be, we could push for a friendly land lease policy for youth who want to specifically engage in certain projects like agriculture, because we need land, but for different things. You could need land just to have your country home, to construct your small house and settle there. But there's another person, there's some youth, a group of them, who want to engage in agriculture and they don't have where to get started. So I think in the amendment, we can push for such a policy that within the government land board, there is a department that is handling matters of young people who want to engage into agriculture, where government can apportion them land or process for them a friendly land lease policy for a short period of time. Then the third one is when also you look at the land tenure policies we have, you realize there are some regions like Buganda where the Namale land is, and quite a big chunk of land is under the kingdom. So when I think about amendments and so on, what happens to the young people in this territory who also want to use land? And that calls for engaging so many stakeholders, including the cultural institutions and so on. It is a complex thing because already we know there is a lot of there's a lot of issues surrounding land between the government and the Buganda kingdom and other kingdoms across the country. But it is something that the youth within these cultural institutions, to me, should explore and ask that the entities that are managing the land have factored in the issue of young people owning land when they want to engage in certain projects. So I think for now, that is all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you so much, Joyce. Let's move to Martin Musime. So our audience, you'll be having each 2 minutes. Make sure that you summarize all your points in 2 minutes. So let's move to Martin. Yes, Martin, you have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Martin. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much for this topic, for the discussion. I just have a simple, contribution when it comes to land and land rights in regard to the youth. My number one is the environment in which the youth, operate. For example, access to income, to acquire land, access to mortgages, access to land generally. First, the youth cannot get money because we do not have enough property to buy land. But even for mortgages, how many youth have the necessary collateral to get a mortgage? Okay, so it's already tilted and unbalanced. Now, when it even goes to women who are youth, it becomes worse. Secondly, because I'm a lawyer, I've also noticed a big gap in the judicial system when it comes to matters of land. As a youth, you would, let's say, you want to sell land, or from the estate of your parents or something, you are inheriting, or you have become part of, you are beneficiary, you want to send to sell so that you acquire some money, or you want to mortgage. And should any dispute arise, okay, or should that be challenged, you are going to, if you're in your 20s, the matter will be done in, like, say, 15 years. You needed money early enough to invest, but then it's taking long. So there is also very little regard to young people in resolution of disputes over land in our judicial system. Yes. Also, thirdly, the societal the societal outlook when it comes to youth on matters of land. It's very likely that at 22 or 23 or 24 for 5 years, and I'm transacting or I'm selling land or in a land deal, I'll be called a fraudster as opposed to someone the in their 50s. So society has also put a heavy burden when it comes to the youth on matters of land. And this goes into this entire inaccessibility of land for youth, for the youth. So how do we go forward? I think as civil society, we have a chance to make an input in ensuring that land and land rights are accessible to the youth. You know how civil society was very fundamental in, I think, the 2013 land policy. Now, it's important at this particular time that we advocate around an inclusive land policy that is devoid of ageism, that cuts out the youth mainly from land and from land transactions, as even in the current land policy, there is regard to. They even say, okay, we shall also consider customs in some matters. But how many youth, as we stand, are regarded, are considered when it comes to customs? Let's say if a village is going to sit, how many youth are part of the village council that determines customs? In the clan meetings, how many youth? It's always will be old gray-haired men. Okay, there will be no youth, let alone female youth. So that is what I really had to contribute. But to sum it all up, every Ugandan has a right to access land or to own land, whether as an individual or in association with others, regardless of their age or social economic status. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moses. Would like to listen to Pamela, whose hand is also up, and then we shall move back to our panelists. Yes, Pamela, you have the floor. Okay. As we wait for Pamela, let's have Matanda. I can see Matanda's hand is up.
Yes, I wrote some comments in the chat, but I thought maybe I should voice some of them. I simply wanted to make two quick points that we need to reflect on, especially as young people in Africa. The first one is about formalization or registration of land. I was shocked to learn, some of you might have heard about the first president of the United States of America, called George Washington. George Washington was a land surveyor by profession. We are talking about the 1700s. The United States of America had land surveyors. This is 2021. Over 80% of our land is not surveyed and registered. We still just identify our land through graveyards, through some local means of people planting things around. What that means is it devalues the land. As you know, for example, I was shocked when I moved from Bugisu to Kampala, and as a lawyer, I was handling cases where you find a family in Buganda here fighting over land of 11 billion. There is no land of 11 billion in Bugisu and in the other parts of the country. But land in Buganda has greater value. One, because of course of the capital and the activities that have gone on here. But two, because land here is largely registered. When land is registered, there may be conflicts and all that, but at least it's identifiable and its value goes up. And like I explained in the chart, it can be used to raise capital, because to produce, you remember our elementary economics that you need the three factors of production of land, capital, and labor. So we have the labor in the country, but land is not in the hands of those who have the labor. And then two, that land is not formalized for it to raise the value and be something that can be used as security to raise capital and then use that capital to produce. So I'm thinking that young people, wherever you are, whether you are in civil society or government or just an ordinary citizen or a political leader, we need to reflect on what system we can use to quickly have our land formalized. Other than that, the value, we have a lot of capital that is locked up in the land. The process now is still very expensive and largely unknown by the people. Actually, many people are very hesitant to have their land registered, even when they have the resources. The second issue and the final issue that I wanted to comment on, or that I did comment on, was about the judiciary. Yesterday, I was sworn in as a magistrate. And so I can share in-house here a view of what I see so far from inside the judiciary, that the two issues of backlog and then corruption are serious issues. Some of you watched on TV, even the remarks of the Chief Justice at our swearing in. He admitted that indeed corruption is one of the biggest cancers we have in the judiciary. My own view is that corruption is just bigger than the judiciary. I think corruption is something we need to deal with as a country and at a governance level, but that can be a conversation for another time. But the little good news I see within the judiciary is that now judiciary has managed to raise resources, and some of us have been brought on board. I'm joining with almost close to 100 more judicial officers, and we have tougher timelines to make sure that cases are heard quickly and decided, such that the very many land disputes, you find the land dispute of 1990 still in the court system. A lot of value is stuck in those disputes. I'm hoping that with the new administration of the Judiciary Act and some of the changes that happen in the judiciary, including having judicial officers in every constituency, that the time spent on cases is going to reduce and hopefully help release land. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matanda. Let me just sample a few of the comments in the chat, and then we shall listen to our last attendee, and that is Molly, and we'll move back to our panelists. So some of the comments in the chat, I'm seeing Ayebare Prosperous, who says what Rosemary is saying is very true. The knowledge gap in knowing the land framework legally, and how can one own regardless of financial stability? Surely it's not known. Okay. There is that, and then there is Akui Beatrice Bena, who says yes, the youth need to be sensitized on the land laws. There is someone using Galaxy who says people outside need this information. So good. Yeah, so we are seeing Kule Expedition, who says nowadays people have changed the statement from land belongs to the people, but it's now land belongs to the government. This Uganda for real. Okay. There is someone who asked a question, and I think I will direct that to Rosemary, who will respond to it later. There is someone who says, how do we get this information about land ownership and land laws get disseminated to the youth? So I think that will go to Rosemary, who will later on respond. I think Moses already responded to the issue of financial gaps. I can see that in the chat. So thank you, our dear audience. I think someone's hand is no longer up. So let me move back to our panelists then. So our panelists, you have a chance to respond to the issues that were raised by the audience. I'll start with, you have 2 minutes each so that we can move straight to our closing remarks. I'll start with Vivian.
Thank you, moderator. Would love to supplement on Mr. Martin's submission about the financial challenges that the youth have, like to own land. I think some of the ways in which that we can tackle that is by developing a saving culture as youths. Because you see, if you accumulate money is like limits on your account over time, I think one will be able to purchase a moderate piece of land somewhere, not necessarily in town, but you can even go off Kampala and like up country, because let me say that you intend to use the land for agriculture, you don't necessarily need to be in town. You can buy a moderate and sizable piece of land, let me say in Luero, and you do your farming there. So, and we need to also appreciate the fact that land appreciates over time. Land that you might buy at 10 million, like today, could cost like 15 million, like in the next 6 months. So land appreciates, and you can buy it anywhere else apart from Kampala. And you do your farming and you do all sorts of things. Then the other thing about financial challenges is that youths can actually work as a team to buy land. We've seen the opportunities like investment clubs. Friends can come up with investment clubs, and money, like gotten as a team, is easier than dealing as an individual. So you could accumulate 10 million, let me say, to buy a piece of land in Luero, Mukono, if you get those monies as a team instead of working as an individual. So yes, that's where you can access monies from a bank, loans from a bank with sufficient collateral. So youth can work as a team in their clubs and buy land and utilize it accordingly. That's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me move to Rosemary.
Thank you. Earlier, you had asked a question about how they can access this information in regards to land. One, first of all, the internet is a very good source of information. There is so much information about land in Uganda. They can find that information on the internet. They can always, if you have friends who are in the legal realm or persons who hold offices in offices that deal with land, like maybe at sub-parish level or local council and all of that, they do have that information. And I also think that the National Youth Council must be having some sort of information as regards land and ownership and purchase and all of that business. And also, it's incumbent upon you, if you want the information, you can look for it. Like I said, the internet, you could read books. There are lots of books on land, about land, that you can read. Say there is land ownership. I think there's a book by, what's his name? I've forgotten the title of the book, but you can find books on land. So for you to be able to get this information, it's at your fingertips. I should say that. You can actually get some of these books, soft copy or hard copies. And yeah, and my last submission would be is, like this person has asked about getting information, empower yourself with the knowledge, because the knowledge that you have as an individual can even help an entire community. Could zero down to helping just your family. Yeah. So try your best as the youth to try to acquire as much knowledge as you can about land or anything else there is, because you having this knowledge is not only going to help you, but could help your family and your community. And like Vivian had said, when we talk about purchase of land and all of that, youth can come together and combine resources and be able to buy land through investment clubs and all of that. So when you do that, you help yourself and your family and anyone else after that. So empower yourself with knowledge is very important. And also participating in events like this is also helpful, because whatever knowledge you have attained from either the panelists or the attendees who have made submissions, that knowledge is very valuable. So these are the different ways in which you can actually acquire knowledge. There's no one straight line for acquiring knowledge. Sometimes I believe in communities, they organize things of this nature, and you can talk about land and all of that. So that's my submission. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. We have a comment from Akui Beatrice Bena who says land grabbing has become a normal crime just because our leaders are number one in the list to make an ordinary man cry. They take advantage of illiterate poor people and take over their land. But if the youth are sensitized on the land laws and rights, I think this vice of land grabbing will reduce. Thank you so much, Beatrice. Let me move to Moses. Yes, Moses, you have the floor. Okay, as we wait for Moses, let's have Modern. Modern, you have the chance
Hello?
to respond to.
Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
Moses, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. Apologies for skipping, but I'm now available.
Okay.
Now, for me, my conclusion is that you see, land shortages and conflicts in Uganda have largely impacted on youth employment. So young people do not have employment, and among the causes is accessibility to land ownership. So these youth have resorted to crime and socially unacceptable behavior. So government must ensure that these young people can access land for production, especially those that in villages. Two, these land issues are largely gendered, and female youth suffer more compared to the male youth. So to bridge such a gap, there must be both harmonization and implementation of laws as required to close existing gaps on gender in the legal framework. You see, these legal provisions do not, on their own, address the gender complex aspect, which is by far rooted in culture, politics, and the history. So they can be effective only if they are socially and politically accepted by the law and government. I beg to conclude with those remarks. Thank you so much, Madam Moderator.
Thank you so much, Moses. Let's move to Modern. So Modern, you have the chance to respond to our audience interaction.
Yes, thank you very much, our moderator today. I will start by appreciating the participants, the attendees who have contributed to what we have talked about. I will start with what Council Matanda, His Worship Matanda Abubakar said. The problem we have now is the backlog and the corruption in regard to the land cases in courts and what. If that is solved, then we shall have a way to stop the land conflicts and even these killings we have in Uganda. I want the people to know that most of the the killing, the murders we have around Uganda is brought by the land. Land has caused a lot of killings in Uganda. So if such cases are handled, the 2000 cases are still in courts. If such cases are handled right now, we shall reduce the land conflicts in Uganda. Then I want to add up on the issues of courts. You know, they introduced the policy of local services to handle the land matters at site. But you find even when these magistrates, the judiciary are facilitated, they would want even ask money from the litigants to go and see the land. And this has delayed and it has caused the backlog of these cases. That's what we need to fight. And then, on the issue of the customs, as my colleague raised that these elders, you find them, they are discussing about the customs, but you cannot find any youth in their meetings. It is true that one has hindered us from fighting those shackles customs that we have in place that have made women and the youth fail to access land. We need to give youth the morale to engage these elders in their meetings, and we talk about these customs, that these customs are no longer helping us. We're in another era. We need to change our thinking. We need to change our knowledge. We need to shift our ideas to things that develop us, not the customs that are affecting the development. You find even in some places, women they have the capacity to develop, but they cannot access land because of those customs. So we need to engage the youth to sit with these elders in the villages, so that when they are discussing the customs, they are also involved and they benefit from those customs that are in place. Otherwise, we also, the government also need to see the way how to shorten the process of formalizing land registration. As Council Matanda Becker said, that almost 80% of the land we have in Uganda is unregistered. It is because people don't have the money and the process is very long of registering such land. So if the process is shortened and they allow the committees at the village level and the sub-county level to operate, we shall have this land be registered and stop the land conflicts we have in Uganda. I beg to submit.
Thank you so much, Modern. Before we get closing remarks from our panelists, let me give a chance to one more attendee, that is Molly Wambi, to submit in 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Laka. What I wanted to say is that youth lack money, enough money to get land due to lack of job opportunities. So government should create job opportunities for the youth to access whatever they need to. And another thing, for the women, there is gender inequality. Women, we are always behind. When we go to buy land with our husbands, they tend to be knowing more than us. So we need clear laws and policies on land ownership and sensitization of women on land ownership. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you so much, Molly, for that. So let's get closing remarks from our panelists. And before that, congratulations, Your Worship Matanda, for having taken oath as a judicial officer. We really appreciate your earlier submission as well. So let's get our closing remarks from our panelists, 1 minute each. We have run out of time. I will start with Vivian.
Thank you very much, our dearest moderator. I would love to take this opportunity to thank CCJ for this opportunity that they've given unto the youths to elaborate on several issues that affect them. We thank you very much. And we hope and we pray that we shall continue having these engagements, because they're really engaging and informative and very insightful. So thank you very much. And I would like to conclude by emphasizing the importance of information for the youths. If you remain ignorant about information, then it would be to your disadvantage. I think youth should really utilize this opportunity that they have, the social media platforms. We have several avenues lately through which you can access information. May we make good use of that. The internet and all the other avenues that are available for us. Let's ensure and try so hard that we have access to this information and that we use it to our benefit. Lastly, I would love to encourage everybody to continue observing the SOPs for the COVID prevailing situation, and also to get vaccinated for healthy living and also for us to successfully open for January. so that we can continue with our businesses and our day-to-day activities. Otherwise, thank you very much, and regards from Buganda Kingdom, and thank you for this opportunity to take part. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vivian. Let's get the closing remark from Rosemary.
First of all, thank you. This has been a very interesting engagement. So thank you to Center for Constitutional Governance for organizing this. Lastly, I'll emphasize the one thing I've emphasized: knowledge. Empower yourself with knowledge. Ignorance is not bliss. Yes, clearly you can see that the challenges people are facing, they're facing them because they're ignorant of the knowledge that is easily available to them. So empower yourself with as much knowledge as you can to not only help yourself, but to help your family, your community, and the country at large, because you are the next thing of the generation that's coming forth soon. So empower yourself with as much knowledge as you can. Be safe, like Vivian has said, follow the SOPs, and get vaccinated if you have no religious or spiritual or customary inclinations that prohibit you from getting vaccinated. Please do. And keep yourself in the loop of engagements such as this so that you can voice out your challenges, you can get information, and then you can also connect with people who can actually help you. There have been about 3-4 advocates on this. This is a good time to, slide into someone's DM and engage them on the challenges you're having. You never know how far this could take you. So thank you for also participating, for the attendance. It's a good thing for you and the panelists. So thank you very much for this, and have a good day.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. Let me move to Moses.
Yes, Madam Moderator, I want to take the honor and opportunity to officially congratulate our brother, His Worship, Abubakar Matanda. Please, wish you the best in your new assignment. Secondly, I want to appreciate CCG for the great opportunity of creating this forum and discussion, which I think to a large extent benefits young people and the entire country. We wish that you create more and more of such platforms such that we can share information, but also get information from colleagues here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the participation, especially my colleagues, the panelists. Thank you so much for your views. I want to say that I have learned a lot. Being a panelist doesn't mean that you don't learn. I have learned a lot from the discussion, and I really hope to engage more and more in such discussion. Lastly, young people who have been raising issues on finances to acquire land. You may not get money from your job at office to acquire land. You may not. The most important aspect of acquiring assets, and especially land, is by accumulating capital. And you need to take your time. I am very sure if you accumulate capital, the question of money to acquire land will be answered. I beg to conclude. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Moses. Let's move to Modern.
Yes, thank you very much for our moderator today. And wish to thank CCG for this opportunity that was offered to us to talk to the Ugandans and my fellow youth. And I wish to congratulate my comrade, the Council Matanda Abubakar, for your new position. And I want to encourage you go and sell the idea of value that you learned from.
Modern, we are unable to hear you. We can't hear you at all. Okay. I think that was a technical issue on modern side, and we apologize for that. So our community talk show has come to an end for today. I would like to appreciate our dear panelists so much for having shared with us this knowledge. If I could read every message on the chat, you would know how much knowledge has been gained from this discussion. Our attendees have appreciated, I myself have appreciated. Thank you so much for sharing. Today we had a panel of 4 to discuss with us this topic, which is on youth participation in land ownership in Uganda. We had Namale Vivian, Katende Moses, Atuhuriire modern karaka. We had Bampabwire Rosemary, Orishaba to discuss for us this topic. Thank you so much, our dear panelists. I also extend my appreciation to CCG, Civic Space TV, and Action Aid for bringing this debate to us. Thank you so much. I would like to also appreciate our attendees and everybody who participated. Thank you so much, and our talk show has come to an end. Thank you, have a great day, and see you again next time.